These are books that you and I are going to read. Yes, you are joining me. Hi. So, I love books. I absolutely love books. Of course, there's a train. Look at this light, though. It's a nice bounce light. Anyway, I absolutely love books, and a big part of my conversion into the Catholic faith involved books. I thought you and I could read together in 2023 12 books of different sorts about the faith, about the Catholic faith, and some just about Christianity. So let me just make the case for books, because you're probably thinking, okay, I listen to podcasts, I watch YouTube videos, I watch, films, documentaries, things like that talk about Catholicism, Christianity, or whatever, about everything. But my thing is that I think, this is my humble opinion. Humble? Maybe not humble. This is my opinion on that. Okay, I love podcasts, documentaries when they're well made and well researched, because there's a lot of fake history out there. But the thing with that is that you're only touching the surface of it. It's like when you go to Costco, for those of you who are non-North Americans, Costco is this giant place filled with goodies, and they give you, basically, there are people that purposefully go to Costco just so that they can get free samples. So you get a free sample of food, and that's, to me, that free sampling is podcasts and videos and documentaries. You get the whole general aspect of it, but you don't get to savor it. You know what I mean? You just get a little tiny, delicious Costco taquita. But reading is like a 3-hour French Christmas dinner. First you have the apéritif, which is before the meal, then you have l'entrée, and then you have the plat, dessert. Before the dessert you have les fromages, and then you have the dessert with the coffee and all of that with wine, and it lasts like 3 hours. I guess that's equivalent to America's Thanksgiving holiday, although I think the French take a little bit more time, because 3 hours is the minimum. Anyway, so to me, reading is like digesting a really good meal. You just can't get to the depth of something without reading. I know there are many people that probably think, oh no, I really don't need to read. I think I know a lot about this, that, the other thing in great detail, but I feel like there are certain things in books that are just, first of all, they stay in your head. You're focused on only one topic, and then you kind of become an expert on that topic. And I'm not talking about, like a doctorate on a certain topic. I'm just saying there are a lot more details that you know about a certain topic, and you're able to process information in a more organized way and a more comprehensible way to you and to everyone else that you eventually speak to about it. All that preamble aside, how is it going to work? So I've picked 12 books. So every month, at the end of the month, I will be doing a review, video review on that book, talking about the different passages I like, my insight, my opinions, whether I like it or not, who I could propose it to. I want this to be an interactive thing. I'm going to talk about it in a bit, but I would probably also share your insights if you join me, which I know you will join me. Come on. Who doesn't love books? I'm also going to read a part of the book to give you a teaser, to incite you, to, get you excited about reading the book. Depending on the book, I'll only read a page or two. If it's a short chapter, I will read the whole chapter. But if you would like to have a full chapter, at least, you gotta sign up in the description below, and I will read you a whole chapter of the book. I've read some of your comments saying that you like my voice, and so I figured, why not read a snippet of the book? But you gotta sign up in the description below. And so I'm going to share my key takeaways and passages that I like, and perhaps if you join me, which you are going to join me, share some of your insight and your favorite passages and things that you share with me. I'm so excited. Okay, first of all, so if you are a reader, you can skip this, but if you are a non-reader and you're not used to reading, here are a few tips that I've come up with that have helped me. And I'm a woman with 2 children who are 2 and under. So bring the book with you everywhere you go. I have books absolutely everywhere in my house, and I mean like everywhere, in the toilet, because my husband wanted books in the toilet. That's the only place I can't. Bring the book with you everywhere. I have a rule for myself, ladies. This doesn't really apply to men, but ladies, I don't like big purses. But I want that purse to be big enough to carry at least a book this size. Oops, you already know what it is. Carry it everywhere with you, and instead of picking up your phone or whatever you have, any electronic, your computer, whatever, whenever you have time to kill, take out the book. I have, like I said, I have books everywhere in my house. Every single space in my house has books. And that helps a lot. The more you're surrounded with the thing that you want to do, the more likely you will do it, because it's just calling your name. Just like when you have, images of Jesus. And sorry, this is going to be a very bright video because the sun just decided it's going to disappear in like 20 minutes. Anyway, maybe I'll lean over. Oh, do I have it here? It's in the room. Okay, I'll show it to you in a screenshot. But I have a pen. Maybe I can show you in a bit. Here, so when I read, I underline. It's not a good example. Oh my goodness. So when I read, this is not part of the list, but if you haven't read this, you should read it. When I read books, I underline, and I buy these pens that are erasable, just so if I accidentally underline something that I actually didn't want to underline, I can erase it. You can use a pencil. I'm just super picky like that because I like to see the color. Yeah, I underline things to retain information and also for me to look back on. Like I said, a book is meant to be digested, but it can be a big meal, So you want to be able to come back to that and reflect on those things, and you won't be able to remember everything the first time. I remember watching, I believe, a video of Bishop Fulton J. Sheen that he was saying that when he reads a book at least 3 times. The first time is for him to discover, and he underlines every time, and the second time is to have a greater understanding, and the third time I believe is more for like just like a last, remember 3 is good, right? 1, 2, 3, like the Trinity. It's always it's a good number. But he reads books at least 3 times to really understand the topic. I haven't been able to do that for every single book, but I do underline most books I read, especially when they're nonfiction. Just because, and especially when they're about history, because my brain, when it comes to history, it just shuts off. I don't know why. Underlining is awesome. You will thank yourself later when you pick up that book, and you'll be surprised at what some of the things that made an impression on you the first time you read it, and then perhaps if you pick it up a second time, it's also another. It's like I look into the past, like, oh, this line also it still resonates with me today. So underline. Take it 1 page at a time. If you're a non-reader, even if the book is 100 pages and that sounds a little daunting to you, just take it 1 page at a time. Tell yourself, I'll read 1 page today and 1 page tomorrow. Another thing is give yourself 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. So it depends on the hour of the day. You might be really tired or you just don't feel like reading, but give yourself 5 minutes to read and see if you will keep going. If you go past 1 page a day, perhaps you do 5 minutes a day of just straight reading. Get a physical copy. I've read books on the Kindle. It's just not the same. Now you can underline it and stuff like that. Apparently, there's like a new product, Kindle product or whatever, but it's not the same. Picking up a book, sitting there and only focusing on this one thing with zero distraction, no type of electronic whatsoever. It's an experience in itself, and I advocate for that experience of reading a book with a cup of coffee. Yeah, if you find that you have bad associations with reading because of school, or you just haven't had a good experience with it, reward yourself. Maybe have a tea or a hot chocolate, or after this page I'm gonna do this, that, or whatever. You might think like, okay, I have children, and they're everywhere all the time with me. I had this problem too. You just have to force yourself to read in front of them. In the beginning, it's very, very hard to focus on that. But what I find is that in the end, like, especially when they have their independent play and they're just in their own little world and they stop interacting with you, you can just take that time to read a paragraph or two. And as you go, the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and you'll be able to read while they're kind of playing and sometimes screaming in the background. You will get used to it. Because we're so used to being on our phones all the time, I think it's also better for our children to see us reading in front of them versus going on our phones. That's my thought on that. Oh yeah, and last one. Pick the optimal time of the day for the type of book that you are reading. I know I can't read something like St. Thomas Aquinas right before going to bed. It's just not possible. I will read the words and it will just go. It will not stay in my head. And so I avoid doing that, and I will read St. Thomas Aquinas in the morning, perhaps. If you can try, I'm the kind of person who can't just read one book at a time, because that's also on your mood, right? It's like listening to music. Sometimes you want something super mellow, maybe some jazz, and then another time you want some like crazy, like Beethoven Ninth Symphony, just blasting in the back. It depends on your mood. And so it's the same with reading. So along with these 12, go ahead and pick an extra book to read during the day. Maybe one harder than the one that we're reading at the moment, or easier, something that's different from the one that you're reading with me. Let's get down to brass tacks. I tried to keep it easier in the beginning of the year, and then slowly getting harder as the year progresses. Well, at least I think so. I tried as best I can. It was very hard to pick only 12 too, but we only have so many months in the year anyway. Some of these I have read, some of these I have half read, and some of these I've never read before. And so the first book we are going to read together is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. I read this while I was converting, because I wanted to know, like, how is it possible to be Christian and be logical? And everybody was talking about this. It's a great, easy read. I will read the intro to this book at the end of the video. But for example, just the contents are really great to know. Book 1 is about right and wrong as a clue to the meaning of the universe. Book 2, what Christians believe. Book 3, Christian behavior. I know that C.S. Lewis wasn't Catholic, but this is a super, super good book. Yeah, especially if you don't know anything about the Christian faith and what it means to be a Christian. This is good. I'll read a passage from it at the end of the video, so stay tuned. Silence by Shusaku Endo. I love this book. This is a book I read at least once a year. I haven't read it this year though, but I read it. Well, this is another thing you can do. I write the dates the day I finish the book on the back. So the first time I read it, well, I apparently didn't write the date, but I wrote the year. It was in 2018. The second time was in 2020. So I try to read it once a year. It's really, really good. I love this book, and I picked it for the month of February because Lent. I think this is a great book to read during Lent. If you want me to do a list of books for Lent, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I can do that for a future video. There's also a movie. The movie is just as good as the book, although the end is a little... But it's about 2 Portuguese Jesuit missionaries, and they try to save another Jesuit priest who supposedly apostatized. It's just a very, very beautiful book. One of my favorite characters is Kichijiro because Shusaku Endo is one of my favorite authors. The characters in his novels, but in this one in particular, it's just so relatable, especially Kichijiro. But I won't spoil it for you. We shall read it in February. Darwin's Black Box by Michael Behe, Dr. Michael Behe. I found this a while ago when I made the video about the 3 arguments or 3 things why atheism is irrational, illogical, and unscientific. And I came across the Discovery Channel, I believe, and they talked about, I already knew about the flagellar motor, like from while I was converting, but anyways, the full title of the book is Darwin's Black Box, The Biochemical Challenge to Evolution. And so it was written by Dr. Michael J. Behe, who is Catholic, and his findings from the biochemical perspective to the problem of Darwin's evolutionary theory. So I'm really excited for this. This one sounds really, really good and very interesting for those of you who are interested in knowing the scientific aspect of this. Sorry for the sun, it's gone. I know that he has another book that came out later than this. This is the first of the 2. In French, it's called Frère François. So it's about St. Francis of Assisi. And it's written by Julian Green, who was an American born in Paris. And I believe he wrote this originally in French. Maybe I'm wrong. My husband read it recently and told me that it was really good. It's easy read. It's just a biography about St. Francis of Assisi. Religion and the Rise of Western Culture, a classic study of medieval civilization. This, like I said, I have a hard time with history, with retaining history. Because I grew up in Canada and they made history very, very boring, I have this horrible association with history. But as I've grown in the Catholic faith, history has interested me more and more and more. And so this one focuses mainly on the medieval civilization. There is a big misconception about medieval times. The biggest ones, people calling it the Dark Ages, and everything was against science. And anyway, so this one is apparently a classic. It's by Christopher Dawson. Brideshead Revisited, Evelyn Waugh. This is the second novel for the year. Just briefly talking about novels, I find that nonfiction is very good at if you want to understand specific things in detail. But I find that when we read fiction, we're able to understand things that seem incomprehensible in everyday life. I hope that makes sense. This is one of the few, I think this is one out of all of them that I didn't really look into, but I've heard good things about. Okay, so not the 3 apologies, but Everlasting Man, The Everlasting Man. I've read Heretics, and I'm almost done Orthodoxy. I loved Heretics. I read that when I was converting, and I'm in the middle of Orthodoxy, and Everlasting Man is the last of the 3 apologies by Chesterton. Chesterton's great. He's hilarious. If you haven't read any Chesterton, please do. He is what do they call him? The king of common sense. And so, Everlasting Man. The Path to Rome by Hilaire Belloc. Hilaire Belloc is less known than Chesterton or C.S. Lewis, but he was an English Catholic. It's about his pilgrimage to Rome, his actual physical pilgrimage to Rome. I've read Essays of a Catholic from Hilaire Belloc, so this is going to be fun. He's a little more difficult to read than Chesterton, but he's really, really good. Le Secret du Rosaire, The Secret of the Rosary by Saint Louis de Montfort. Saint Louis-Marie Grignon de Montfort, to prepare for October, which is the holy month of the Rosary. God or Nothing by Robert Cardinal Sarah. This is an interview with Cardinal Sarah. Like I said, I read The Power of Silence. I started reading this a long time ago, in 2020, but I didn't get in too far. Whoops. So I even had the bookmark why I left it off. From what I remember, it's about his journey to becoming Catholic and how he got to become a cardinal. It's an autobiography, but in an interview style. It's very easy to read. I love Cardinal Sarah, and he's just one of those, you read it and you just feel a little better, you know? Anyway, The Confessions by St. Augustine of Hippo. I started reading this before my son was born, and I left off. I read 2/3 of it from what I can see. I love it, and I really want to finish it. And I'm putting it off till November to help, just because of, the whole No Nut November, and to help those who are having trouble with the sexual sins, sexual vice. It's absolutely beautiful. Like, as you can tell, as you can see, I have, underlined many parts of it. It's an absolutely beautiful book. It's not actually that long. This edition, though, is really, really good because of the footnotes. So it's one of those books that you need time to ponder and think about after reading. So I hope to finish this book with you. Life of Christ by Bishop Fulton J. Sheen. This is the biggest one of them. I left it off for the end of the year. And it's just his reflection on the life of Christ. I read a bit of it during my conversion a long time ago, but it was in Kindle form, so that was already difficult for me. But if you've ever read anything from Fulton J. Sheen, or even just heard his talks on life is worth living, it's pretty easy. And the way he talks is the way he writes, but a little bit more, a little deeper. I just love Fulton J. Sheen, and I figured why not end the year with an awesome book by talking about the life of Christ. So like I said, I want this to be an interactive thing. I don't want this to be just me talking to you about the book. I want this to be something we share together, experience together, teach me about the things that you learned from the books. I feel like I say this in every video. Oh, I forgot this. I'm sure I forgot something, which is true. From your own perspective, I'm sure have something else that other people could benefit from. And so I urge you to sign up below to be part of this group. I will be emailing you once a week on my insights, and if you email me things like photos, passages that you like, your thoughts on a chapter, or something that touched your heart from the book that you're reading, I would like to share that with other people, to inspire other people to read, to know God even more. And tell me in the comments below, have you read any of these? Have you half read any of them? Like me? Is there one that you're really interested in reading, one that you didn't like, or the one that you really liked that you would like to reread? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to know. I'm sure other people would love to know your insight, your opinion on the book. Like I said, I want to do this together. I hope this year, 2023, will be a fruitful reading year for all of us. And now I will end with an excerpt from Mere Christianity. Mere Christianity, Book 1, Right and Wrong as a Clue to the Meaning of the Universe. The Law of Human Nature. Everyone has heard people quarreling. Sometimes it sounds funny, and sometimes it sounds merely unpleasant. But however it sounds, I believe we can learn something very important from listening to the things that they say. They say things like, "How'd you like it if anyone did the same to you? That's my seat. I was there first. Leave him alone. He isn't doing you any harm. Why should you shove in first? Give me a bit of your orange. I give you a bit of mine. Come on. You promised." People say things like that every day. Educated people as well as uneducated. And children as well as grown-ups. Now, what interests me about all these remarks is that the man who makes them is not merely saying that the other man's behavior does not happen to please him. He is appealing to some kind of standard of behavior which he expects the other man to know about. And the other man very seldom replies, "To hell with your standard." Nearly always he tries to make out that what he has been doing does not really go against the standard, or that if it does, there is some special excuse. He pretends there's some special reason in his particular case why the person who took the seat first should not keep it, or that things were quite different when he was given the bit of orange, or that something has turned up which lets him off keeping his promise. It looks, in fact, very much as if both parties had in mind some kind of law or rule of fair play or decent behavior or morality or whatever you like to call it, about which they really agreed. And they have. If they had not, they might, of course, fight like animals. But they could not quarrel in the human sense of the word. Quarreling means to show that the other man is in the wrong. And there would be no sense in trying to do that unless you and he had some sort of agreement as to what right and wrong are. Just as there would be no sense in saying that a footballer had committed a foul unless there was some agreement about the rules of football. Now this law or rule about right and wrong used to be called the law of nature. Nowadays, when we talk of laws of nature, we usually mean things like gravitation or heredity or the laws of chemistry. But when the older thinkers called the law of right and wrong the law of nature, they really meant the law of human nature. The idea was that just as all bodies are governed by the law of gravitation and organisms by biological laws, so the creature called man also had his law, with this great difference, that a body could not choose whether it obeyed the law of gravitation or not, but a man could choose either to obey the law of human nature or to disobey it. We may put it in another way. Each man is at every moment subjected to several different sets of law, but there is only one of these which he is free to disobey. As a body, he is subjected to gravitation and cannot disobey it. If you leave him unsupported in midair, he has no more choice about falling than a stone has. As an organism, he is subjected to various biological laws which he cannot disobey any more than an animal can. That is, he cannot disobey those laws which he shares with other things. But the law which is peculiar to his human nature, the law he does not share with animals or vegetables or inorganic things, is the one he can disobey if he chooses. This law was called the law of nature because people thought that everyone knew it by nature and did not need to be taught it. They did not mean, of course, that you might not find an odd individual here and there who did not know it, just as you find a few people who are colorblind or have no ear for a tune. But taking the race as a whole, they thought that the human idea of decent behavior was obvious to everyone. And I believe they were right. If they were not, then all things we said about the war were nonsense. What was the sense in saying the enemy were in the wrong, unless right is a real thing, which the Nazis at the bottom knew as well as we did and ought to have practiced? If they had had no notion of what we mean by right, then though we might still have had to fight them, we could no more have blamed them for that than the color of their hair. I know that some people say the idea of a law of nature or decent behavior known to all men is unsound, because different civilizations in different ages have had quite different moralities. But this is not true. There have been differences between their moralities, but these have never amounted into anything like a total difference. If anyone will take the trouble to compare the moral teaching of, say, the ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, Hindus, Chinese, Greeks, and Romans, what will really strike him will be how very like they are to each other and to our own. So, if you're interested, please sign up. I've linked it in the description below. I'm super excited, and let me know in the comments, are you up to it? Are you up to read 12 books this year? Come on, it's not that much. One book a week, one book a month. Let's take it 1 month at a time. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. God bless.